Shall we call the work session to order? Is everyone ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, welcome to the work session. So this is the special meeting of Jackson School Board, and I will now call it to order. It's about 5:01. We agreed with the last, are there any changes to this little work session agenda that everyone has? Anyone have anything they want to change or add to this before we move on? Please get to it. Okay. So at our last school board meeting, we talked about putting together. Oh, you can't hear me.
Put the mic closer to you.
Sure. Is that better?
Is it on? It was on because I noticed I was very loud when I was next to it.
How about now?
You've got it right.
Is it working?
Check.
All right. Can everyone hear me now?
Check.
Is it working? Just sing a few lines. Check. Okay. All right. I'll try to move forward. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for getting that sorted out before we got moving on the business. So the plan from the last school board meeting was for us to get together and just start to hash out exactly how we're going to approach the idea of looking at high school options, and we narrowed it down to Kennett and Freiburg at that meeting. So that's pretty much as far as we got, and tonight is really literally a work session where we're going to roll up our sleeves and try to figure out how do we move forward in a constructive way. Yes?
So you asked for it to change the agenda before, and yes, I do want to change the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think you said
No, I did say no. I noticed there's no public comments on our agenda. We are required to have public comments on our agenda.
Okay, so we'll add that.
Both at the beginning and the end.
Well, we have to have 1/2 hour of public comments.
Great.
It doesn't say when.
We'll do that. So before we get into that, then why don't we open it up to the public and welcome you, and if anyone has any comments, please enjoy.
That kind of was it.
Yeah.
When my public comments begin.
No, definitely, yeah. Welcome. No public comments? All right, thank you, Jerry. That was very good. We'll make sure to add public comments at the end as well. So if folks have something they want to add, then please let us know. All right, so this is not part of the agenda, but I was just trying to think through some of our conversations, and I was trying to make sense of the back and forth at the last meeting. So I just have some ideas about what I'm hoping to accomplish tonight. So I thought what we maybe start with is just a few minutes so that we all agree on what we want to accomplish tonight. And sometimes I do find it's easier to respond to something rather than to just invent it all, especially given that we've got limited time. So for the benefit of the public, I'll just share that coming into tonight, I'm hoping as one individual board member, and again, I'm not speaking for everyone, but as one individual board member, I'm hoping that we can figure out what exactly this working group will be, establish a group structure, a leadership, and meeting times if we're going to be meeting more than once. And I would like to establish group tasks. So to begin with, to confirm the options to be reviewed. What are we actually going to be doing work on? What do we need to focus on? Because I'm hoping it will be very narrow in our scope. And as a committee of the school board, I'd like to know when will our work be done. And from there, hopefully that will be fairly quickly. I'm hoping that we can come up with a work plan with tasks, timelines, and assigned persons between now and whenever we feel like we'd like to have results. And there could be results along the way, of course. And then I'd like to confirm a communication plan so that we all agree on where the information is going, how it's going out, and in what format. And then I wanted to kind of turn it all over to you all to respond to that and let me know whether you want to add things, take them away, edit it, however you want to do it, so that we're just all in agreement on how to at least get started.
So that sounds great to me.
Yep.
And yeah, I say dig in.
The only thing I would like to see and to add is to clarify what we're talking about. Are we talking about giving parents options, or are we talking about just where we send our high school kids?
Well, I think ultimately our mandate is to provide an adequate education. So I think we have to agree as a board what that means, meaning we get to decide as a committee what to recommend to the full board. And I mean, if it happens to be we're the full board working on it, that's one thing, but I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if we're going to say we want to offer options, if we're going to say we think there's one option, this is our recommendation. So,
That's not what I mean.
What-
I mean, so are we considering giving parents an option where to send their kids, or are we talking about just like, are we gonna send our kids to like, I guess if we start out with kind of in Freiburg confirming that, or
Yeah,
as a board.
my understanding is that we as a board are looking at, can we offer Kennett and Freiburg together, or do we need to offer one or the other? But what we did in our last meeting was narrow the scope, so that we're not talking about anything, correct?
That's, I guess that's what I'm opposed to.
Yeah, that's what you're opposed
So to me, whether or not we offer parents an option on where to send their children to school is a completely different discussion than where are we sending our high school kids.
I'm gonna just pull it back for
Yeah.
a second. One, it would be good if we worked out some of the logistics, but I think none of us are in agreement on that yet. So I think that's gonna be the bulk of our conversation. So whether we decide to give
What,
more to.
and I guess why that's awkward for me is
Yeah.
because I'm extraordinarily opposed to the idea of offering parents an option where to send our children, either be it to high school, middle school, or grammar school. I'm opposed to that. It's a
Right.
different process and different laws that govern that versus where are we going to contract with sending kids to high school. So, and the primary reason that I'm opposed to giving parents an option, because to me, it flies in the face of our strategic plan, particularly when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't see how that's a hurdle that can get passed and be in conformance or be in line with our strategic plan. And I guess that's a full stop. I can't get past that and then consider where are we sending our kids to high school. Those are two different things.
So will it affect your ability to participate in the meeting up until we get to that part of the conversation?
Yes.
Okay, so.
In other words, I don't want to participate in any process that is giving parents the option where they want to send their children to school and having public taxpayer dollars pay for that.
So Jerry, let me I want to understand really granularly what you're talking about. So let's take the high school options situation. So what you want is at the end of it to have one choice, one option that Jackson is tuitioning into, not an option for kids to pick A or B. It's that this is any taxpayer dollars are only going to school.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, that's why I'm trying to clarify.
To
Yeah.
me, they are two different things entirely. One is which we set up processes by, it would take a long time. We could contract with other schools to give parents a choice of where they send their kids to school.
I understand, that's not-
There'd be I can't remember what the wording in the RSA is, but there's the school that we contract with, the main school we contract with, and then parents would be given the option to send their kids to another school. And the public would pay for what the main school's cost is per student. And then if it was above that, that would be up to the parents to pay. So that to me is a completely different thing than where are we sending the kids to high school.
I know, but what I'm not following is that, are you saying that, so where are we sending our kids? There's two questions, right? In the past, how it's been done is where we are sending our kids to high school means we're sending our kids to Kennett, and if anybody wants to do something different, that's on them. Which is, right, like we all agree, but that's the way it's been, right? Like we send our kids to Kennett.
So that's been the case whether we're talking about K through 6,
I understand.
7, 8.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to like
No.
clarify some language. So what you're saying is that you want at the end of this for there to be one school that is the answer, you're not interested if there were two schools that are the answer. And that's, we're trying to like, you want to know right now, you want to be clear that we are only picking one thing to be the answer.
No, I guess I go back to, I am opposed to giving parents a choice with taxpayer funding to send their kids to another school other than the one.
But isn't that what I
primary
just
school
said?
issues.
Okay, so let me just jump in here. So, but the question is, Jerry, let's say the board does the work to get amounts of money, we go through whatever process we agree upon. Are you opposed to the option being anything else besides Kennett?
That's a different conversation.
What, but that's a.
So when it comes down to where do I favor sending our children to
No,
school?
I'm not asking, well, I'm asking, are there other options in your mind at this time that we can look into, or do you not even want to have that conversation?
I want to have two different conversations. One is a conversation about whether or not we're going to give parents a choice on where to send their children,
Yes.
which is in and of itself a separate conversation than Where do we want to send our children to high school?
Right, and I think you're like 6 steps down the line, because we're not even at the point right now where we're sure what we're doing and who's involved. So I personally,
guess that's why
let
I
me
can-
finish. Personally, I don't think I can answer that question for you today satisfactorily to say, I'm not going to turn it to the parents and say, okay, this is the work we've got, these are the amounts of money, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. I'm not closing off that avenue today. I'm not saying I'm advocating for that. What I came into tonight with was we've established that we wanted to look at Kennett and Freiburg as 2 potential options. And to get the information, I mean, right now we don't even know costs, whether it will take us, transportation, special education, any of the things that we would need to know to provide minimally adequate education for our
So we
students.
don't need to answer any of those questions at all to determine whether or not we're talking about giving parents a choice versus choosing a high school option.
But I think that my understanding is that kind of building on what Jess just shared, that what we're doing right now is investigating those 2 options and also saying, could we give parents a choice between the 2 of them, or is the only option that we have to pick one? I'm not certain. I hear that you have a very strong opinion, but as a school board member, I need to say, what does it mean if we were to give parents a choice versus what it would mean to not give parents a choice? I'm not ready to make that decision right now to say, you know what, we're not giving a choice, we're picking one or the other.
So what I'm really frustrated about,
Uh-huh.
and it's been frustrated with all along, is we've known information, we should know all of this by now. We really should.
I agree. I would love to have like a mini
But as board members, we don't need some.
Hold on a second. So we should know the information, Jerry. We have had one event after another when we've been forwarding and having the conversation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move it forward, and I'm going to ask, are we able to first talk about a group structure, leadership, and meeting times for having this conversation? We're not going to be able to make a decision right now, Jerry, on whether we can give options or not, because we literally have none of the information because we've been forwarded left and right.
And that's, I guess what would be productive is I will participate in this part of the conversation.
Okay.
Because I don't understand it. It makes 0 sense to me that we're not approaching this in a methodical way with information that we should have known for. Kevin gave us this information back in December, I think it was. You sent out the emails with the RSAs governing this. And
What
for us,
information do you think we
Yeah.
have that, I mean,
I'm also curious,
I'd like to know.
so
I'm missing.
all along I've been trying to ask to understand what our options are. And so Kevin gave us the information a long time ago that explains what our options are.
okay, what are they, Jerry?
What are the options? Lay them out for us.
And that's what I'm talking about. There's 2 different processes when we're talking about giving parents a choice. And I don't know why we would limit that to high school, but that's an easy one for us to
The
solve.
question before us is a high school contract. That's what we're limiting it to. So let's not talk about middle and elementary school. Just if you could lay out for the board, because we have limited time,
Okay, so
what
what
are the options you think we have so well educated ourselves on that we could possibly make a decision
okay,
tonight?
so
I'd like to
there's, so
know.
there's 2 different paths we could go down. One is which we contract with one school to send our children to.
Mhm.
The other option available to us right now is to contract with 2 or more schools to send our high school kids to.
Right, and what,
And I'm fully in support of vetting out the option of picking one school to send our children to. What I'm opposed to, and I think that we'd have to be a lot more transparent, a lot more open about it. We're talking about giving parents the option of where to send their children. That is also something we can do. We could contract with, like, for instance, we could contract with Kennett High School to send our kids to be the primary school where we send our kids. Then we could develop an alternate contract with Freiburg Academy, in which parents could then send their children to Freiburg Academy. And what would happen there is that whatever the cost per student is, like $33,000 per student at Kennett High School, that's what parents could receive up to send their children to Freiburg Academy. So,
I think what you're talking about, Jerry, is are we looking at vouchers? I don't think we've said we're looking at vouchers. What we're looking at is gathering information. It's like buying 2 cars. We need to know what the car costs. Can we go and buy the car? Is it available? We don't even know whether Freiburg Academy would take us at this point. We don't know what the Conway School Board is going to come back to at this point because we don't have the data. And when I say that, I'm not even looking at like what you or I, as different parents, might think is a good school. I mean, what's the actual cost per student? What would it mean to transport our students? If Freiburg comes back and says, we will not transport students, we cannot do that, we don't provide special education, I think that we're going to look at that in a very different light than if everyone comes back and says, hey, this is the package I'm offering you.
But like, why I was so frustrated by this is the last two things you just said, we already know the answer to.
Where's the answer?
We already know that Freiburg Academy didn't hot bus our kids, and we already.
Where is that in the official record?
Oh, and again, that's why, if you
It's
guys.
got to be public, Jerry. It's got, because I'll tell you what, I got a very different answer in the casual conversations I had at the times when I was permitted to talk with people. And as a parent who sends their kids over there for part-time, we don't know that for sure. I think what we need to do as a board is to get people on the record to answer for what they actually are. You're making assumptions now.
Jess, it's not an
Show me
assumption to
something
say
in
that the town of Freiburg is not going to pay to bus Jackson students to Freiburg. That's not an assumption, that's
I'm
just
sorry,
reality.
does the town of Conway pay to bus our students to
We pay.
Conway?
No.
Right,
Same thing.
same thing.
Right, you just said, we don't know whether Freiburg will pay to bus our kids or pay for our special ed kids. We know the answer to both those questions. The answer is they will not pay for our special ed, and they
Okay,
will not pay
so-
for busing.
Wait,
We know that already.
hold on.
We don't need to form a subcommittee to find that answer.
So what I'm gonna take, we have a town that's saying, why can't we go further on this? This is part of the thing that we're locked up in. So if we can, what I'm gonna recommend is that we have narrowed it to either Freiburg or Kennett. And what we need to do is step one, fully understand what it means to send all or some of our kids to each of those places. Because it might be all or some, because right now, it's not all of our kids. Not every single kid who lives in Jackson has to go to Kennett. People can
And I guess that's fine. Really, the smart thing for me to do is just to remain quiet and just watch what you guys do, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get started.
And then we'll see if-
I do want to encourage you, Jerry, if you have concerns or criticisms, please voice them, because we need all
I know,
voices.
yeah, like you saying you're,
I know, to opt out is to not advocate for something you think is right. Now, I'm hoping you won't thwart us, because we do need to get some things on the record one way or another, but at the same time, I want you to participate. You offer a valuable insight many times, but we have to make decisions. We need to start to say things on the record, like, yes, no, yeah, we are for this, we're not for this. Right now, so that's what our plan is to start doing tonight, and we have to kind of figure out, is this a one-time session, for example? Like, do we have one question that needs to be answered tonight? Like, for example, Jerry, if you'd like to make a motion that we only answer one question tonight and take a vote on it, and we all vote and say we're only picking one school, then by all means make a motion, because that's how we move the business of the board forward.
I don't understand what that means.
Okay, so we'll move forward, and we'll just keep trying to move forward. My understanding was that we were looking to kind of figure out how can we logistically set up a way that would include voices, but actually get us to make decisions by deadlines so that we can make the decision on the contract and any other potential options that come our way as soon as we can do that in an efficient manner. Are we in agreement with that?
I'm in agreement with that. Can
Yeah.
I line that out?
Yes, please do.
What do we have, Kevin, what are our minimum obligations? How many town people, how many school board people to have an official school board? Can we just have a structure?
To have,
A school board committee, like an official school board committee for this?
the board would establish a committee,
Yep.
and then really it's up to you folks to establish who's on that
But
committee.
there need to be 2 board members, correct?
There could be one,
Okay,
you
got it.
could have two, you
Yep.
can't have 3.
Got it. Noted.
And then you could assign 2 community members, you could assign staff, however you choose to, that's up to the board.
Yep. But there's no total number that we can't exceed or a minimum number that we cannot be under?
No.
Okay, great.
And then you would want to establish the purpose of it, right? And then you would want to establish who are the voting members.
Yep.
And then there should be records,
Yep.
postings of those meetings, right?
Absolutely.
All of those things. And then that committee is only a recommendation committee
They
to
don't.
the full
yes.
school board. They
Okay.
aren't a decision-making group.
Yep.
They would put a recommendation forward to the board
Yep.
for consideration.
So, really, it can really be any structure we want, as long as we're following the rules of 911, because we want to make sure that people can come to meetings, they can hear what's going on.
Yep.
Hopefully they'll be recorded. Otherwise, we can have board members, no board members.
Yep.
But one thing that would be very important is to figure out who would be leading it, because they would be responsible administratively.
from a school, does it have to be a school board member? or
It does
have to
not,
be-
no, and that was why I was hoping to start with, do we even want a committee, or is this?
So I think we absolutely need a committee. I don't want to have these conversations in the school board meeting. I don't think that's as effective. I think that I'm going to just go for very politically what I think should happen right now.
Yeah.
So, in the interest of time. So I think that we should have a committee. I think that we should have 1 or 2 school board members on it. I think that potentially those school board members should be the leaders because it's helpful. I think the meeting should take place the hour before the typical school board meetings.
Okay.
And so that way it's very easy for public to come and to choose to stay for the school board meetings.
Yeah.
And I think that, my guess is that we have 2 to 3 community members and 1 or 2 board members.
Okay.
And that very specifically, it is to get concrete about what does it mean to send our kids to Freiburg, using the community brainstorm that we had,
Yeah.
that Sasha processed, answering the relevant questions. What does it mean to send our kids to Conway? Is it possible to do, would either school take themselves out of the running if there was an option for parents to send to either school? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's like, Kennett right now is the only school we send to. If people want to do something different, it's on their own scene. So it's actually a pretty relevant question. If you're not the sole contracted school, would that change how you would do this? It's worthwhile to
Yeah.
ask. And then at the end of, and then to look at that, bring that data back to the board. And then at that point, the board can say, do we even have the option to, do we want to have parents have a choice? And part of that question is, what does it legally mean for us to do this at high school? Does this open us up to having to do it everywhere?
Right.
Are we, like, what are the ramifications?
Sure.
And then to bring that to the board with the data. Very,
Okay. Melinda, how about you? Do you want to add anything? Or do you have any thoughts?
I'm just taking this all in.
I was like, holy cow, yeah, I'm just keep going, because I think what we also need to do is I think that if I were a parent with my kids approaching high school, approaching high school in the next 2 years, I would not want to wait until the last possible minute for the Jackson School Board to make this decision. I would want to feel like we were working to make this decision by this spring.
Yeah.
So that I had a year in advance, or a year plus, not I was finding out in March where my kid was, what the options were for my kids. I don't think that's responsible, I don't think that's respectful.
Yeah.
When is the contract up?
So it looks like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but March of 2025 to March of 2026, or that's the earliest we could opt out. And really, I mean, we've opted out. We told them that we will not be renewing as the contract was at this time. So it means it's open for negotiation. But the earliest we would do that is March of 2025. The latest would be March of 2026.
So basically in the fall of 2026, we're not sure where we're paying for our kids to go to school, to like generally, like just put it out there. So I don't want to wait until March of that year to tell parents and kids, hey, this is what's possible. I think the respectful thing to do is to get to the decision by this spring, so that we have, like parents can think about what that is.
And if I can just jump in, part of why we're looking at those March times is because it has to go to town meeting,
Right.
because we need approval of the taxpayers. So, I mean, the one nice thing about this is if we do it in an open, transparent manner, we'll get checks along the way, but then we'll also be able to get, obviously, the big check, right? And then any plan we come up with, it still has to be approved by the Board of Education.
Yeah.
So
We have the time.
we have time to do that, but we have to get moving. So, yes, Kevin?
Just a point of clarification, a couple of things.
Yes.
So if it expires and you don't have an agreement, it doesn't have to go on the warrant if it's a single year, okay? You're obligated to educate the student. The bigger issue is you need to start thinking about how you're going to budget for that,
Yeah.
which takes place in October. Okay, so that October, November, and that's for both sides.
But we would make a decision and then we'd have the following October to budget for it to then go into effect the next fall. So again, the responsible thing is to be in a decision period. So the way I live in my life is you work backwards. So what the heck is it going to take to be in a decision process and to feel completely confident, to have a wonderful frequently asked questions document like Erin demonstrated for our, so that means that we get this committee started and and I think that frankly, I think that every month they're reporting out. And what is it, it's June, so I think realistically there's some desk work that needs to be done. I think that it can be done by August. I think if we have all these things at our fingertips, by August, or we have the holes, we have a matrix and information that says, we don't know this yet.
Yeah, so then people, and also one, then people can just like responding to something, because people
Absolutely.
respond to it, ask questions, say, no, that's the wrong direction, whatever that is. Can I just ask a question, Evan? So you said if we don't renew it, it rolls over year by year?
No, it would be a 1-year negotiation.
Oh, okay. So
Okay, so,
how would
but you run the risk, right? So that can happen. So little
Absolutely.
towns, like Hart's location, they can go to Kennett 1 year and they can go to Freiburg the next. They typically do not do that. But then you have to have that agreement. I'm sure Conway is going to look at their budget as well and how they're going to do it. So they're going to want a level of commitment, however that is.
Absolutely, and I'm sure everybody wants to go right, right?
So your best bet is to do a lot of work and have a plan in place for spring of next year. if possible.
Absolutely. And I mean, things always happen, so I would like us as a board to be pretty darn clear by January what we want.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you back that up, we can create a fall, like a straw schedule. But what I would want to do is say, let's put this committee together, and let's say by our next meeting, chart out what is possible. Can you get that information by August? Because you can have the conversations, or too many people are on summer vacation, right? So, like, what can we have when? Because we can put approximations right now, but we're saying by January, we want to have a decision. So we need to have the gap conversation, I would say by August, September. We need to fill the gaps and be ready to go by October.
Yeah.
But we need to be having the conversation that Jerry brought up, which is, given that, are we moving forward with one?
Right.
Or are we having it, because we need to have a different conversation about, we're going to give the option, we need to have the time to do it. And as part, I'm going to stress this again, the committee has to be looking at what does it mean for us to have the option. Because if that information isn't part of what's being presented to us, then all of a sudden, that's when we're gonna be like, oh, we don't know this yet, and now it's gonna be another year, and I think that would be irresponsible.
Okay, so what I'm hearing so far, and I'd like to bring this to the full board meeting for final decisions, which I know right now, we're full board right now, but.
I think we should do this without James.
Oh, no, I'm just at 6 o'clock.
Okay,
You know,
yes,
so,
okay.
because right now we're just doing a work session. So a committee of no more than 6 people, could be mixed bag, but at least one, preferably 2 board members, board member leading it, starting at 5 o'clock on the same day as school board meetings, and would be reporting regularly at that 6 o'clock meeting with updates, however with whatever information comes out each time. And we'll need to set some target dates, preferably, Micah, maybe you can help hash out dates that we want things by as we look through the conversation.
You mean tonight, or?
No, just as we're doing it, I'm just thinking like if you can take that as sort of task as at the moment so that we don't forget it. But and right now, so far so good.
Kevin, when we're doing community members, is there a process that we have to follow? Like, do we have to say, we're looking for community members and we decide community members?
No,
Or
the
just
board,
Okay,
the board can select those members.
okay.
So what we can do is, if it's up, we can say this is what we'd like to do.
Are there people who are interested?
I've already had a couple people reach
Yeah.
out to me, so we can.
I know Michael Forthius is interested, who's not here, no, he's trying to be here, so just like putting his name out. I don't know how many of you would be interested in being on this, but like, super transparent, we need some help,
Yeah.
right? And like
Obviously.
people who are psyched to do this and get us to the point of like a slide deck.
Yes.
Right? Here are our options.
And keeping in mind also that these work sessions will also be public meetings, so people can come to them. It doesn't mean that you can't come to them. Well, as Jerry very acutely pointed out, we'll have a comment section at the beginning and the end. And of course, people should always feel free to reach out to us, as several have this month to me. I'm not sure what other folks. So moving forward, right now, we have definitely a mandate from the board that we're looking at Kennett and Freiburg. And so we need that committee to look at those as 2 options.
Yes.
You know, in whether to pick one of them or whatever it is. I don't even think I don't think we have to make that decision right now. It's a matter of like, if you're choosing the school, what do we need to know about it? What will it mean for our taxpayers and our students to send a child to that school? What will it mean if we look at this one? So, is there anything else we're missing on that piece?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be missing, so you said the cost for sending our students to one school or the other. You would also want to look at what are the costs for giving the parents an want to. Questions we can't answer are like, is Freiburg willing to take our students?
Absolutely.
Right.
And then how much would Freiburg charge us?
Which is what- yeah.
It's like, that's the information we want, I don't understand.
That's what we're trying to get to, Jerry.
Exactly.
We're trying to get to a
But
point
you're,
where we can
but you're
see.
wearing, but you're wearing with lots of other philosophical questions
What?
that,
No,
that we.
where's the philosophical? This is like, who needs to
Yeah,
make the phone call?
Let's just keep moving forward, because, Jerry, if you just hold, please, we're gonna get to a work plan, which is literally, we wanna get to a point where
How do
someone
you
can
make a work plan before you know why you're doing something? Like, I don't know, why are we doing this?
If you would just hold for a second, let us talk about it, and if you would like to, if you have a better idea of how to do this, because and I'll say this, Jerry, it has been months and now years of you picking, breaking things down. Offer something constructive. If there's a better way to do it, offer it. Put it in
What
writing.
I'm
Put it
trying to say,
in-
what I'm trying to say is one thing that would help me is if we answered the question, why are we doing this?
Yes, Jerry, and that would be the mandate to this committee. Because, and
No,
why we're doing
why
this, we
is
have to
the
make a
board
decision.
doing this? How do we tell a committee what to do? We don't know why we're doing it.
So Jerry, give me an example.
In other words, are we doing this to save taxpayer money? Are we giving this to give them a better education somewhere other than where we're sending them currently? Those are two big whys that are philosophically, I think we need to establish before we can task a committee with doing something.
There was an agreement that was made however many years ago that Kenneth was the school. That is now something that is time to reevaluate. If we don't, like, the why is because it's our job to reevaluate. It's our job to say, do we just sign off and continue doing what we've been doing? Or do we say, what are the options and where should our kids go? Like, where do we think provides the education that we're
So,
trying to create?
so number one,
Isn't that enough of a
we're
why?
doing it because we have a contract that's up. And anytime a contract is up and a relationship is changing, I think there's an obligation to understand exactly what the expectations would be going forward. Whether we choose Kennett as our option or not, we still have to go back to them and negotiate with them. And to say, we're gonna just keep the contract, roll that baby over for another 20 years, or hey, now is a great time for us to look at things and say, well, we want this or that, or this is a concern we've had, or hey, we really love these things, we wanna keep doing this. This is a time to reevaluate that. We're also doing this because we just had a listening post on March 7th, and by my count, from the questions we got, none of them which were mine, there were over 40 questions from the community that we have to figure out how to respond to in an efficient way. So one main question we got from the community was, what are our options and what would they mean? What's the impact on our community if we make a change, if we stay the same? So just like any other good research project in an academic setting, you have to get the information so that people can see it and understand what we're talking about. So moving forward, when we're talking about a work plan, the first thing we have to figure out is, part of it, to Jerry's point, is what would be the task, mission to this committee as far as getting them to do work, because I think that was a sticking point the last time around. So we have to know exactly what will it mean for them to be successful.
So, this is awesome, because we have 25 minutes.
Yes, we're gonna get as far as we
Okay,
can.
no.
We have to, you know.
No, absolutely. So I'm right now I think again, it's working backwards from where we need to be to have success, right? So I think that we are, I think we made these milestones, which is to have a completed matrix by the August board meeting.
August 2025.
Comparing, 2020, so I'm sorry, I'm working
Sorry,
backwards to get to the, so, by August 2024, we can do a screen share, whatever, this August, we want to have a matrix that has all of the information about what it would mean to bring our kids to Freiburg or to Kennett.
Okay.
And with, if there's missing data, to articulate
To have
missing
time to
data.
fill that in and answer questions.
Yes, but to work as hard as possible to be at 100%, right? But I understand it's the summer and things happen, it's like, let's not make perfect the enemy of the good in this situation, as far as possible.
It's
to
something
present
that, so people, we can start
As much
to
as
respond.
darn impossible,
Okay.
right? And then to take the feedback from the board
Mhm.
at the end of the August session to say, yes, we need to get that, to then have a complete set of data by September, at which, and that should include what legally what it means to have either option or one option, right? To have, what scenarios through from a taxpayer perspective and a legal perspective, the crescendo, waterfall issues
Yeah.
that happen if we just choose one or if we have the option to.
So focusing on Freiburg Academy and
Yes.
Kennett High School, The task would be for that committee to evaluate and recommend the most suitable public high school option to the full board, right? Because the board would make the decision that would align with our district's educational goals, our budget constraints, and community needs. Something like that, and obviously ensuring optimal outcomes for our students.
I think it's moral to evaluate Freiburg and Kennett as the high school options for the town of Jackson, and to evaluate the option of having both.
Okay, and I think
I
part of
think
what we have
that's-
to do is narrow that for them, so that is it based on economics? Is it just like, what are the costs? What's our cheapest
I
option?
think what we already have that, Jess. We already have the like matrix that was the town, if we
So
could.
you want to go back to,
No, what Sasha, the questions that were done by the town listening session,
Okay.
across the town structure.
okay, so have starting with Sasha's
Yeah,
recommendations.
why don't we call it like the town, whatever,
Listening posts.
the listening post
Okay, recommendations.
recommendations.
Okay, so start with those. So ask them to start with those to see what's viable, to narrow down, or to clarify information for presentation purposes. Right, ultimately, we're hoping they're gonna make a presentation.
There's always a presentation.
Yeah, so we have to be very specific, so
Yeah,
that people don't think we're waffling, or that there's not, it's too broad, So, let's see, post recommendations, okay. And I think she did give a number of, items to review, so we'll have to get those. I asked her to send them to me digitally. She said she would be doing that, so we can pass those along. Even if they just got something started that the board could then respond to and say, no, I don't think that should be part of the decision making. Right? Because if it's up on the, if we're all looking at it, I think she recommended a variety of things. We as a board have to decide, are those actually all factors we're going to be considering as we move forward, right?
I think that, so let's I'm gonna pause for a second and step back, which is, are we trying to have an overarching charter for the committee, or are we trying to talk about line by line what the work plan is?
I'd like to give an overarching charge and then
Okay,
some
so
very specific
overarching,
tasks.
I think it's just to evaluate Freiburg and Kennett High School options across Jackson listening post criteria,
Okay,
and to on a work day. And my daughter has a broken ankle, which is awesome to have a third issue in our family system for those who know what we've been dealing with.
okay.
So, I think it's to do that and to, there's something about the option of having both that has to be inside that charter, right? And to understand what, if any, opportunities, what are the implications for having both?
Consequences of either choice.
Of either choice or having both choices.
Yeah.
That's the big
Okay.
piece.
Either choice.
So one's not a choice, and one would be giving parents a choice. That's what I'm
Okay.
framing it that way.
I think
Can you see-
part of the question. Well, maybe you can expand on that, Jerry.
Well, one is we're exploring options on where to send our kids to high school, and the other is we're exploring whether or not to give parents where they want to send their kids. I guess we're really going to limit that to high school for some reason, and for some reason we're projecting that out years because we could offer that now. That's why I'm confused about that. It's very confusing.
No one's brought it to the board to ask us to look at this before. This is the business before us, Jerry. We've been asked to do this. The board has
I
made a
guess my
decision
point
to do
is,
this.
to me, we should be able to settle the question of whether or not we're offering parents a choice, or we're just exploring an option on where to send our kids to high school. It's a very easy question for us to answer. Because philosophically, I don't know how we get to the point where we think we should give parents taxpayer dollars to send their kids to other schools. That to me isn't something that's, to me, I'm philosophically opposed to that. And to me, it's an easy sell to get taxpayers to be philosophically opposed to that. Because A, it's against our strategic plan, and B, it would add $600,000 to $700,000 a year to our operating budget.
But
Wait, hold please. I think, Jerry, if you would like to keep registering those complaints, bring the data. Show me this is going to cost $600,000 or $700,000, because I'm not even sure what it is you're talking about. Right now, all we're talking about is going to Freiburg and saying, what would it take to send students there? going to Kenny, we already have a lot of information, but putting it into a package that the taxpayers and the board can consume in an easy to understand fashion so that the decision can be made. Because we don't even know what the implications would mean right now. So, you know,
But we do. That's what I don't understand. We should know. Like,
what's the cost of sending our kids to Freiburg, Jerry? What's it gonna cost us? How would it operate if we had special education offerings there? Can you tell me that right now?
Those are questions we need to answer. What the question that we can't, those things have nothing to do with giving parents a choice.
But if,
They have nothing to do with
okay,
it.
how about this? Okay, I'm gonna take a different philosophical approach. I think parents have everything to do with this. I think our community has everything to do with this. I think what we have to do is get the information and the research, and we have to understand it so that we can say what is the best thing to provide education to our students. If we look at it and we realize that, hey, we've been missing the boat on things for a long time, or hey, this is happening or that happening, I think that one, I don't even know why this has to be something we would be against. Why wouldn't we embrace this process? It's exciting and interesting. If Kenneth is doing the fabulous job that we think it's doing, let's celebrate that. Let's find out all the cool things that's happening. Let's find out how inexpensive it is for our students. I would love to be able to brag about that. And if Freiburg has another opportunity for us, why would we not want that? We have a lot of parents right now who have come to us and who, by with their own pocketbooks, have made choices. I think when you have enough people looking at that and asking us about it, we have a duty to explore it so that we can say why we chose one option or not.
And I agree with all of that. To me, and that's why that is a different process than determining whether or not we're giving parents any choice, because that is a different process.
Well, if you can come up with a better process for that, please present it and we will consider it. Make a motion, we'll talk about it. But for now, let's keep moving forward with trying to establish any process at all so that we can get a full board vote on it.
And I guess towards that process, why would the first goal of that committee, or the first target for us to not even need a committee to, why wouldn't we just have a dialogue with Freiburg about whether or not they even would accept our kids?
Because we need the committee to know exactly what we need for them, because it's not fair to a committee, as we learned from the last process, to not know exactly what there is needed from them and what tasks they need to accomplish to be successful.
Because we could say, that's why I think the board should take that off the plate of the committee, that we should have a dialogue with Freiburg to determine whether or not they're going to accept our kids.
Then say you don't want a committee, Jerry. Just say we want to do this all in board meetings, where we want one authorized member of our board to go speak to Freiburg and bring the information back. I think part of the problem is...
So do you want the committee to do that now? Why can't we at least charge them that that would be their first task, determine whether...
Absolutely, that's exactly what it would be. The
I mean,
first
that's
task is to talk to Freiburg and to talk to Kenneth and to say, would you take our kids? What would it take? Can you
Okay,
answer
so
these
here's how this is
questions?
going to complicated, because you asked a question. What would one school opt out if we told them we're going to give parents a choice?
Mhm.
Do you understand how complicated like to me, if we as a board resolve that issue, we answer that question, the option of whether or not we're going to send our kids to Kennett or Freiburg becomes so much easier to understand for the whole town.
I
And for
don't
us
think
to,
we know, okay.
because it's so philosophically different to just choose, okay, we're going to send all of our kids to Kennett or we're going to send all of our kids to Freiburg. It's a completely different thing than we're going to give parents, we're going to send all of our kids to Kennett, and then if parents want to send their kids to Freiburg, here's another choice for them.
Well,
Those are two different things.
And they're colliding
Yeah.
in this moment. And I think they're going to. And so I agree with you that like the very first thing, like tomorrow should be to say, what are the answers to all these things from Kenneth standpoint and Freiburg, and what do we need to do to get to and it seems like we already had some of this done, but to pick that back up and to get that information so that we know what it is and then come back to the board in July and to say, here's what we know. Freiburg said yes. Freiburg said only on these conditions. Kenneth said, yes, we will continue to do this, and these are the conditions. And then we can look at it and we can keep, I hear your lack of comfort with having these two things together, and I really do, Jerry. And I'm not, I'm probably misusing the word choice inside of like a triggering way in a school conversation. And what I'm trying rather to do is to back up and to hear what has been shared with me from this town, which is like, could we do both? Is it possible? Is that possible? And I don't have the answer to that, and nor have I,
And again, we do have the answer to that, you just don't know. But we can...
Who's we? As a
Right.
board, we act as a body. Does the board have an answer to that? Not officially. No, we don't. So, okay, we have to keep moving
So
forward.
Jess, what I would recommend is that the high school options committee charters to, number one, evaluate Freiburg and Kennett high school options, and number two, to understand ramifications for offering both Freiburg and Kennett as high school options.
Okay, so it's effectively
Two.
like, what is it going to mean to send kids to Kent? What will it mean to send kids to Freiburg? And is there even a possibility that there would be cooperation or collaboration to give parents the option between
Yes.
those two public institutions?
Yes.
Okay,
So that's what I would recommend the charter be. In July, I would say to draft the matrix against Jackson Town Hall listening post criteria.
okay,
So that's what's gonna be due in July, which would be like as robustly as possible, like towards each of those things, right? So
Okay.
there's a matrix between those two schools.
yeah.
What is the information we have? And then be able to, you know, Jerry says, we already know that information, great, let's get it in 3 slides on a deck and say, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do. That'd be awesome. I would love to be done with this
Yes.
conversation sooner.
Jerry, if you have the information, I
Yes.
beg and implore you to put it into a slideshow and present it to us, because I don't have it, I'm not confident in the numbers or the ramifications at this point. So if you know the answer, if you're already at the end, and part of it is, I think we all have ideas about things, why we do this process is so that everyone gets to come along the steps with us, so that we can get to them, and then we can check on it, and we've got these checks and balances. I mean, this is meant to be a public process. So, Melinda, I know you're just listening, but do you have any?
I guess, I think,
You, okay.
So what I'm going to do is take those two things and then give data points for each month, right?
Okay.
So it's like in July for point 1, which is evaluating Freiburg and Kennett, to draft a matrix against the Jackson Town listening post criteria for both Kennett and Freiburg to the maximum ability, goal of 75%. So our goal is 75%. Let's see if we can hit it, right? Like, is that possible?
Yeah.
And then for, you know, task 2, create a 3-slide deck of what we know and what we need to know.
Great.
To make that decision.
And I think really, what would be ideal is we give them the authority to go to both.
Yes.
And
Oh.
Freiburg, and even if
No.
principals from the schools want to come and talk to us, let's get the information directly from the source.
Absolutely. No,
Melinda.
that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry.
do we need to do something to get people to vote?
No, we
Okay.
can give it to them, but you need to know that, and because
Yes.
and we would want to lay that out specifically, that they're obviously only acting on behalf to get this information, you know,
Yes.
and to bring it back to us, so,
So at that point, at the July meeting, I think the school board would be reviewing that, and we would say, this is great, and actually, those things that we're missing in the matrix, we're okay with that.
I'd be
Right.
shocked if you got all this done by July meeting.
I know that, but I think we have to, but I don't, it's actually, it's not a ton of those pieces, it's a couple
Doesn't
solid
involve-
conversations.
Right, it involves talking to people at your school.
Yes, which I understand with the summer is like really complicated, and again, why we're like, you know, working backward.
and maybe what we can do is we can talk, maybe in a bigger meeting, when we can, I'll be looking for motions from people to actually solidify this stuff, so that we can get actual.
We can do that by August. I think the problem is if we want to be, my sense is by March, we have a plan and we have frequently asked questions, right?
Yeah.
Which means in February, it's done,
Yeah.
right? Like, which means in January, we have a draft of it. So we're getting close to it if we say, well, you can't really do anything in the summer.
Yeah.
No, I
So-
agree, but I'm saying like
Do you think we
July.
should do, so
you
what should be done by
say-
July? 50, the matrix?
One, I think we could get a meeting for the July, I mean, it will be their first meeting, so they can't, not much work can get done between now and the first meeting, right? So I think August or September might be ideal. I think once we get that
Got it.
information, decisions will start to make themselves.
Okay,
Right,
so
so
then,
then we'll just, board members will make decisions, we'll say, yeah, we want you to continue this way. This way, each month, we can say, okay, thank you for that information, you're done, or hey, we really need you to go back and could you do this piece, or
By
we want to
August,
have,
people are on
So-
campus. and-
so by July, so nothing's gonna happen in the next
nothing
month.
will happen.
So there's just gonna be like, hi, we're on the committee, high five, this is fun.
Yeah. T-shirts.
I believe that more can be done by then.
I would love that.
Well, the committee would have to meet before then, before the next.
But why? Why does the committee have to meet before then? Do they have to meet before then, or can we say, this is the committee, this is the school board member who's going to be on this committee, and what we want to do is to create that 3-slide deck that explains to us what we know and what we need to know about whether or not we can have the option for vote.
Well, only if you, before you said meeting at 5, right, before the school board.
I know, I'm just asking.
Yeah, there's no constraint about that. We can hold the committee meeting tomorrow. If tonight we say we're gonna do, this is the committee, it'll be like me, Jerry, and his parents.
Yes.
Then that.
I actually like you to Jerry, that's
We're
actually
having
my
coffee
call.
tomorrow. I don't know if Jerry wants to do this, but I'm
Okay,
just saying,
I think it'd be really
we just
good.
said, if this was the committee.
So I think, yes, going forward, 5 o'clock, but I think we need to have a meeting before,
Yes.
before regular July. It doesn't make sense to me.
And if you want to get something in July, you
Yes.
have to wait.
Okay, so,
First meeting within the next 10 days.
yeah, so maybe if you want to keep brainstorming
Yeah,
a little bit,
yeah.
maybe what we can do is, can we turn this over to the public for public comments? 'Cause I wanna
Sure,
make
go
sure
for
it's
it.
time for that. Is that okay? Okay, so with that, we'll all go back to our corners and turn it over to the public. If there are any comments or questions or concerns you want to jump in. Yes, Mr. Jordan?
I heard you speak about Freiburg as an option for quite some time. Why hasn't one or two of the board members gone to Freiburg and asked the pertinent questions as to, A, what it takes to be, what's the curriculum, what's it cost? No one's done that yet?
So we started to do that, and then we had a series of very difficult problems with the process. So the committee that had formed and that was working on that and had initiated conversations was basically, I think, dissolved. I was not on board at that time, so I don't know exactly what happened or how it happened. But there was no authority given to anyone to go speak after that point. And we're now only at the point where last meeting, we agreed as a board that we could even talk about Freiburg.
Is there something blocking you from doing it?
No, hopefully not at this point. I mean, that's what, I think that's part of what we're trying to just get to is like, yeah, let's do it, let's do it, because I
Have
do.
you made that decision to go do that?
Well, last month we decided as a board to limit it to Freiburg or Kent.
Well, that's what I'm speaking about.
Yeah.
Freiburg has always been an option, from what I've understood. Is
Not
that-
according to the board, no, I mean,
Okay.
no.
So it hasn't always been an option. All right, but it is an option now.
To be evaluated, to get the information on it, it's not.
And that's what I'm saying, is if it's an option,
Mhm.
why won't one or two of you go over there and ask the questions to evaluate?
We just needed to agree on that as a board. We're not, part of what I'm trying to do is make sure that no one's acting outside this board structure. And last meeting, we ran out of time to make any decisions at all.
So the answer is you haven't decided to do that yet.
Correct. The board is not as in one
Can I
body.
suggest that you do decide to do that?
Yes, I love that suggestion, and we'll put that on the consideration list for the general meeting.
It sounds like that's the first point.
That's the
of
first part of the committee. So I put in June, first meeting of the committee, nomination of individuals or dyad, I think I'm using that word correctly, but feel free to correct me, to interview each school.
Yep.
And number 3 is work plan to understand ramifications for offering both Kent and Freiburg as high school options. So
Yeah.
that's what we're asking to have happen
So
during that.
you're still treading water.
No, because, well, and then, so I don't know, so thank you. I think that the next thing is work, nomination of individuals and action, so that by July, they'd have those meetings. So that they're immediately going to have a meeting with Freiburg and with Kennett to say, what is this?
And effectively, what we can do is in the next meeting, someone can just make a motion to say, okay, you two board members are on the committee, please reach out and get that information for next month. We might not need to wait for a committee to need to do that, we can start gathering that information ourselves. So we just need to, as a body, decide that. None of us can go off and act on our own. Is there anyone else that wants to jump in? Yes, Ms. Mary.
Two questions, two comments.
Mhm.
One of the things is that your schools are only as good as your teachers.
Yes.
We know what Kennett has to offer, what they've done with their kids. And just like we know, the kids go to Jackson School, they wound up valedictorian or salutatorian up to high school. So we have to take that into consideration. And the second thing we have to consider is the kids. Okay? They go through grammar school, middle school, and now you're going to send one or two of them someplace else because the parents decided or whatever. That's breaking up the kids. You know what that does to a child? He's losing all his friends and everything else and has to remake them when he gets into high school. That's really, really hard. So please take that into consideration when you decide what you're going to do. And you're taking it out of the state of New Hampshire, putting it in the state of Maine. So I think that all needs to be considered when you're making that decision.
Sure. Valuable points. Thank you. Was there a hand? Yes. Nicole?
I would like to be a part of the committee if possible, and also I'd like to hear a little more from Jerry on how it's against the strategic plan, and where I can find the strategic plan to review online, because the website's a little tricky for me, technologies.
Are there any other public comments? Yes, Charlie?
I'm torn on the right way to ask this question. I'd love to see a straw poll of the board, and not be binding, of whether you want to offer parents the option of choosing which high school. Because if it's democratically, like everybody's going in that direction, then maybe that's just something to that. But I'm not sure if that's the right ask. The other ask might be, what if the school board, 2 members of the school board were assigned coming back with a PowerPoint slide each, one with why we don't want to offer the option to parents and why we do. Just to put it out there, because Jerry, I know you got a valid point. I know you. I know you're thoughtful, and I know I can see in the board and other factions like, why wouldn't we have the option? And I'd like to know like what's behind that. So I don't know the best answer. That was a broad.
That's helpful, thank you.
She has a direct question, so let's pull it out and answer the question.
Okay, well, can we just finish the public comments though, before we do that? Is that okay? Are there any other public comments?
Yes, I'm Larry Burke from French Lick. Actually, Jack Warren. I would be interested in being on the committee, but 2 things. One, I'm going to the Great Barrier Reef Thursday, and the other thing is that I'd be very biased because I've taught adult schools.
Oh, that's great.
I know, but it would be biased because I've been at Tenet for like 32 years and been at Frederick for 2. So I have insights, but I would not want to be the one to make that report on which schools have what to offer. But I do think I have a lot of insight into those issues.
Great.
So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Can members from the public attend the committee meetings?
Yeah, it's all open.
Yeah, the plan is for them to be open for, and we can actually structure them so there's more time for the public to participate than, depending on how early they want to. So, anything else? Okay, Jerry, back to you. 3 minutes.
So Nicole, I'm prepared to answer that question. I'm prepared to answer that question whenever the school board wants to actually have that conversation. I've been asking for the school board to have this conversation for probably 2 years now. And so I would love to do what Charlie suggested we do, that we come here and actually debate the issue as opposed to, I don't know what.
Okay, so we will take into consideration everything that everyone said and incorporate it as we move forward. Okay, and the last piece here was just the communication plan, so just making sure the information is getting out to folks. Obviously, we're hoping to have meetings recorded, minutes will be taken. Reference both a matrix and an FAQ. Yep. Are those both things that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I think they should be public. I think they're shared out at each meeting, like the development of it, and eventually we're looking for a communication plan with the town. I mean, that's what needs to happen.
Okay, so anyone else have anything else as far as communication goes? Making sure that it's added to either our website, maybe we have a tab or something for this, or it's just under the SAU. We'll have to see what is easiest.
So then, my understanding that in the meeting that we're having at 6, we're saying we are going to make a motion to approve this committee with these standpoints, with this goal, and with this ask. Which, do you want me to read what I wrote?
Yeah, well, let's close this meeting before we go.
Then I'm going to start after.
Okay, go for it. So I think that is the plan. Is anyone
Yes.
who wants to make a motion, obviously at any time, we're going to move our business forward more effectively. When the motions come in, we can make decisions and throw ourselves out there. And anyone who wants to make a presentation at any time, I think as a school board member or otherwise, is welcome to come to me, to come to Kevin, and to say, I'd like to be on the agenda to present why I want something to happen or why I don't think it should happen. So I would invite that to everyone here, everyone there. Please, we would like the information sooner rather than later. So I would invite you, Jerry, to think about how best to do that. I will tell you, I'm not prepared at this time to debate because I don't feel like I have the information. So although I do love debate, so I will definitely look forward to that at some point. But we do need a motion, I think, to close this.
All right, close work session. Great,
Is that right?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, take a quick break.